Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Dennis. So today we're going to do a review of the MSI MAG B550 TomaHawk motherboard. It's an ATX motherboard. We're going to get it out, have a look at all its features, everything, and just see what it's like. I've been waiting to get this motherboard for a while now, so I'm kind of anxious to have a look and make sure it's got everything I think it has. So here we go. Okay, so here's our motherboard. Looks pretty sweet. We're going to get it open, have a look at it, and we're going to go from there. So let's get this open. Of course, our motherboard is set on top, and we just have to reach in carefully, take it out. We're going to set it aside to start with and see what else comes in the box. There's always goodies that come in here. Okay, so inside here we have our case badge, couple SATA connectors, a MSI Gamers and Creators. So basically this is for different products if you want to go in and buy them, whatever. DVD drive, so you got your motherboard drivers and utilities, which you can go online and get more updated ones, which I suggest you do. And if you watched my last video, you would have seen that you can get Dragon Center and everything from the Microsoft Windows Store. So if you didn't watch it all, go back and watch it. You'd be amazed. This, of course, tells you how to install your CPU. Most people aren't going to need this, but if you need it, you can refer to another video I've done. And, of course, MSI's MAG B550 TomaHawk user guide. Lots of good information in there. You should go through this. Okay, and the only other thing is our screws for M.2 drives. They give you 3 of them. I only use 1. Sometimes I use 2, but so far, that's it. That's all that's in the box. So let's move on and have a look at the actual motherboard. So the motherboard comes inside an anti-static bag. Okay, a lot of people think, okay, once you get it out, the outside is anti-static, which is not. It's only when it's inside. So reach in, take it out, and this is what it's going to look like. That's why you usually set it on top of the box when you're doing everything. And so anyway, let's go over all the features and show you everything that this has. So the first thing is I'm going to point out are, of course, our socket, which is an AM4 socket. Okay, so it supports up to 3rd gen AMD Ryzen processors and future Ryzen processors, including the 5000 series that you can now finally get your hands on. I've done the 5600X and the 5800X. If you have one you want to see, and I actually can afford it, let me know in the comments. Tell me what you'd like to see the stock cooler, whether you'd like to see an aftermarket cooler. Usually I'll do temps anyway, all that kind of good stuff. But just something I want to point out. You have, of course, the extended heatsink. Okay, so it has a larger heatsink for a little bit more cooling. And of course, now let's get down to our memory slots. Now, they open on this side. They do not open on this side, so basically you're just going to put them in the slots, and then this one will click in place, and of course popping them in. If you haven't seen that, watch my last video. I showed how to put memory in your motherboard. And of course it has the Lightning Gen 4 solution, so you'll get the latest generation for PCIe and M.2 solution. So you have an M.2 slot here and one here. So you can have up to 2 M.2s in here, which will give you a 64 gigabyte bandwidth for ultra-fast gaming. You have your audio boost, all right? So the big thing in here is you can see how you've got your line that traces it, okay, to keep everything nice and separated, and that prevents hissing, popping, all that kind of extra noises that you do not want to have. So, of course, it supports Mystic Light because it's MSI. It's up to 16.8 million colors at 29 LED effects. Always good to know. Now, something to keep in mind is if you go with the 5000 series CPUs, you may need to BIOS update. So just keep that in mind. And of course, it has the AMD B550 chipset, which you can always do updates for. Your graphics, you have one PCIe 4.0 and another one that's here is your 3.0 times 16, okay? And they're both times 16 slots. Of course, they divide up to 8 by 8 if you use 2 graphics cards. A lot of people don't do that anymore. They use usually only 1 graphics card. Has support for 2-way AMD Crossfire and memory. So your 4 DIMMs here, okay, are in dual channel DDR4, and they will support up to 4866 in overclock. On the bottom of our board, of course, we have a room for a system fan here and here. You have the 24 pin on the bottom, your USB Type-C, you have 6 SATA, and that pretty much covers this side of the board. We're going to move on. We're going to go each side of the board one at a time just to kind of go over everything and make sure you see everything and we don't miss nothing. So before we move on though, I just want to mention that your 6 SATAs are 6 gigabyte per second. You do have support for RAID 0, 1, and 10 for SATA storage devices. So these 2 slots here are PCIe 3.0 times 1 slot. So with your audio, of course, it supports 7.1 channel HD audio with audio boost. I go back over these things because I want to make sure I don't miss things. Of course, this is your battery, which is how you clear your CMOS and take it out. And of course, if you have a CMOS button, you can use that. And sometimes there's jumpers on the motherboard as well. Of course, your 8-pin for your CPU power is right here. And a couple more things I want to point out. You have another system fan here. You have the addressable RGB, which on this motherboard is J Rainbow. Okay, so keep that in mind. And we'll get to this a little bit later. And so let's go to the back of the motherboard first. Okay, moving on to our motherboard. So first we have our little button right here, which is our flash BIOS button. You have our PS2 port, so it's a combo port, the old style mice and keyboards. And on top of that, we have our USB 2.0, okay, right here, Type A, and your flash BIOS button, as you see, it's indicated, got that little white around it. That's where you put your USB, all right? You can use it as normal USB otherwise, but just keep that in mind. We have our HDMI, our display port. We have our 2.5 gigabyte LAN, 2 more USB 3.2 Gen 1, 5 gigabyte a second Type A. Then we move over to our, right here, USB Type-C, 10 gigabyte a second USB Type 2 Gen 2. Follow on top of that, right here, marked in red, is our USB 3.2 Gen 2, 10 gigabyte a second Type A. And of course, right here is our 1 gigabyte LAN. Okay, on this far side, we have our audio ports, our optical spoofed out, and that's pretty much it. So let's move on to another side of the board. So again, one more thing I want to mention is that your LAN, so your 2.5 gigabyte LAN uses Realtek 8125B, and your 1 gigabyte uses Realtek RTL 81111H. Something I just wanted to reiterate is the first slot, so steel reinforced, is PCIe 4.0, and the next one down below is PCIe 3.0. Okay, so this is the one, if you have a newer graphics card, that's the one you want to put your graphics card in first, and followed by any other one here. And you can use either slot, depending on what if you have some reason you can't use this one. But just to mention it, of course, your brackets are always here for a lot of your stock coolers, because you use these latches to put them on. A lot of times, if you use aftermarket, you'll have to take these off. So keep them handy, put them in a box, and so if you need them later on, you can do that. So we're going to move on to the top of the board up here. We're going to go through everything on there and make sure we cover every detail. Okay, so starting on the top, of course, we have our JAUD1 HD audio is basically what's going to go in there. You have your JRGB1, basically that's your RGB, not your addressable. So it's always good when you're buying a motherboard, make sure you have both of those on it. Okay, then we have another system fan header here, and then we have a switch. So this switch, if you don't like RGB and you just want to turn the whole thing off, go ahead and use that. So you have another system fan here, 2 more USB 2.0s, USB 3.0 here. You have another front panel connectors here, and this one here is for your speakers. And you have another addressable RGB right there, and of course followed by another RGB right here. So you've not only got 2 addressable RGB, you got 2 RGB as well. So you'll accommodate probably everything you need to put on this system. You're building a system, you want to bling it all out with multiple RGB stuff and LED strips and all that kind of good stuff. Well, on this system, with this motherboard, you're going to be able to do that. Really, that's the gist of everything you're going to need to know. These screws, okay, you have one on each side, okay, for your M.2 drives, have to come off. There's usually a spreader that has to come off as well. Take that off before you put your M.2 in, before you put it back on, because when you put it back on, what's going to wind up happening is if you don't take it off, it could cause the M.2 to overheat a little bit, and that could degrade the speed you get out of it. So I wanted to take this off and just show you what is underneath of this. So I loosened the two screws, took this off. I'm just going to hold that so the screws don't fall out. Okay, on that side they probably won't. This one it will. And see this little plastic tab? So that's there so you can pull this off. Okay, the whole thing will come off, and then that will go against your M.2 drive, which will go in here. Okay, and of course you want to use the first one here first, because that's your Gen 4. And this one I don't believe is Gen 4, so you want your higher speed one to be this one here. And so putting this on or off is pretty simple. Put it back in, screw it on, and you're good. Okay, so I'll show you the first one. I'm also show you the one that you're going to be using. We're just going to take this out. Okay, same thing is going to be as the one on this side. And it's going to come off. Okay, see that screw comes out, so that's fine. This one, yep, it's all done. So again, little tab, pulls it off, put that on, and you're good to go. And this is where you're going to mount your M.2. So put it back on. It's just as simple. Put it in, line it up with that slot, line it up on here, and just screw it in. Not much to it. Very simple to do. Just make sure you get the hole lined up, and then put you in your other screw. That's it. That's all it's to it. And of course, make sure they're both tightened up. I don't think I have that quite as tight as it should be. No, I guess it's just the sets are a little loose right now. So if you use both, okay, this one and this one, you can have any number of storage. So as big a size as you can buy, because you can get up to 8 terabytes if you got the money, and you can have 16 gigabyte of storage on the motherboard. And when you get ready to go to another board, when you're ready to go to another motherboard, you can just go ahead and do that. You can pop these out, probably put them into the other one and continue on. And if it's compatible, it'll probably work. And I haven't done that as an experiment, but maybe I'll try that and just see. So just wanted to show you the SATA drives. Okay, so plug in for hard drives or whatever else you want to put in there. And let's go to the back. Okay, something you don't always see, so let me just zoom back out. Okay, so moving on to the back. Of course, we have our back plate secured with 4 screws, and sometimes you will not need this as well if you're using an aftermarket cooler. It's an ATX motherboard. We'll have 9, okay, right there. So that's where your standoffs would be. So that's where you'd want to place them when you're putting it into a case. So that's a look at the motherboard on the back. So the only other thing I want to mention is it says it's 3rd gen and Ryzen desktop processor compatible. But it also says it's not compatible with the AMD Ryzen 5 3400G and the Ryzen 3 3200G processors. So keep that in mind. So if you plan to get that CPU and use it, it won't work in this motherboard. So very important thing to know. If you ever are in question of what will work and what won't work, go to PCPartPicker.com, put the motherboard you want to use, put all your parts in there, and give it a try. It should all work, and you shouldn't have any problems. All right, everybody, so that's it. So if you like the video, hit that like. If you don't, you know what to do. Leave me a comment if you have any questions, if there's something I forgot to go over, or you just have general inquiries. I do like to test it later on, so if I don't remember to do that, or you need me to do it, because you have just a question on a certain thing, ask away. I'll go and do the test, and I'll get back to you. Sometimes it'll be another video. Just depends. So if you're new here, think about subscribing. If you want to see other videos as they come up, Hit that bell for future notifications, and thank you very much for watching. See you next time.